A question I get asked a lot is, can you apply holistic value creation to families? And the answer is emphatically, absolutely yes. And what we're talking about is material value creation, emotional energy value creation, and spiritual value creation. And 100%, all those categories apply to a family. And when you think about legacy, what are we building over time? What do we want to leave behind, past generation to generation, et cetera? Most really just think about money when they look at that. And a lot of my friends that do have a fair amount of money really struggle with how do we, in our wills, leave it to our kids in a way that's going to have the biggest impact. And it's always just about the money. And the challenge with that is, let's say we divide it up and they inherit the money. Typically, it goes away pretty quickly. So there's a saying out there, and I've heard it a number of different ways, and it makes total sense. First generation earns it, second generation enjoys it, and the third generation destroys it. So if we're just going to divide it up and hope for the best, that's not the best strategy, in my view, to really build legacy. And when I think about building holistic legacy within families, I want to know, what are we building and passing generation to generation in the material value creation bucket, the emotional energy value creation bucket, and the spiritual value creation bucket. And one of the ways I think about the money side is, look, I've got a fair amount of money that I will be able to leave to my family, and I'm not going to divide it up. Whatever the gain is each year, I'm going to take 50% of that gain, and it'll get divided up amongst the family members depending on how they're participating in growing family legacy. So when you look at material, emotional, and spiritual, are you leading an effort to build that for the family? Are you participating in the efforts that others are leading, or are you not participating? So based on how you very simply score in those three categories, that determines how much of that material value you get from the gain someday when I'm not here, and there's a return on these investments or these assets coming in. So now it's not being divided up and hoping for the best. We're building on it, and we're encouraging family members to build on it. When it comes to the emotional energy, what does it feel like to be in the family? Who's leading the effort there to make that stronger and stronger, and even build on it to where when you pass it to the next generation, they build on it further going forward. Same thing on the spiritual side. At its core, spirituality, spiritual value creation is connectedness. Most go directly to religion, and that's awesome. But at its core, it's about connectedness. So it could be connected to God. But let's start all the way at the beginning. How connected are the kids to themselves within the family, and then to other family members and extended family and friends and communities communities that are important to them. So all of this can be built on, passed on to the next generation, and continue building on these things. So I think about holistic family legacy building, and it's full on through this holistic value creation lens, the way I'm looking at it. And within the family, so just, practically right now, how do you apply this stuff? If I think about material value creation for a family, hey, let's have a budget. And we have an amount of income that we can count on, and we have categories like, paying rent or mortgage payment, food, utilities. These have to get paid, and there'll be extras categories, right? So we want to go out to dinner maybe once or twice a week. On the weekends, maybe we want to go for ice cream, whatever it is. All these extras that are in there, let's make a budget. We have this income. We've got all these categories. This is what we budgeted for each of those. And then assign one of the categories to a family member, or multiple categories to a family member. And as we finish the month, go back, keep track of it. What did we actually do? So we have a total budget at the bottom, and we have what we actually did. And I think from a material value creation standpoint, the very first line item should be save. If there's $5,000 for the family, we're going to save 20% or 10%. That's the amount that's there. And we make sure we do that because we want to build on this material value creation legacy with everything else. but they all own it. It's a game. We're working on it. What can we do to lower the budget in terms of what we're spending so we can save more or have more for a vacation, all of that. So there's so much that every family member can do to contribute to building material value within the family in a really healthy, fun way. The emotional side is interesting to me. I've said this a lot on my podcast. Positive emotional energy is the scarcest commodity on the planet. I would rather live only half as long if my emotional energy was on 9 or 10 as opposed to twice as long on 1 or 2. It would just not be a very fulfilling life. So emotional energy is something that within the family we can cultivate within ourselves and be really intentional, especially when we're not having the best day. Maybe we have lower emotional energy. Be really intentional about not affecting others and bringing their emotional energy down. So what are the activities we can do as a family to continually elevate emotional energy? And self-awareness is a big part of this. Do we realize how we affect everybody else? I think of the 3 areas of value creation: material, emotional, and spiritual. My strongest one is the emotional energy side. And I realized a long time ago, if I'm not in the best mood, it's wild. I can walk into a room and bring everybody down. And so if I'm not having a good day, one of my mantras is I'm going to do my best work, be my best when I'm at my worst. And my goal is nobody notices. And ideally they go, wow, that was an incredible interaction. So there's so much we can do there around elevating emotional energy within the family and making that a ritual. It's what we do, and passing that on generation to generation. And then the spiritual value creation within the family, it's going to be individual, unique for every family and however they want to approach it. Foundationally, what are we doing to connect with each other? What are the things that we're regularly doing to make that happen? It could be a dinner table discussion once a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, whatever that is. I know a lot of families are quite busy and they don't have the time for it. But what if we made that a ritual where minimum 3 days a week, we're going to have a dinner table discussion. We're sharing a meal. We're talking about family goals. We're talking about where everybody's at and the value that they're trying to create in the world. That does a lot to drive connectedness. And then there's so much more that goes with that. And each family gets to decide what that is. But this is really about being intentional with developing value as a family and developing it holistically in all the categories. And setting, for example, family goals. When you set family goals, I think, and I prefer to call them family value creation goals, could be a vacation we're going to, saving for college, moving into a new home. There's so many things that could go there. What's super helpful is if when you have the family value creation goals, that there's something meaningful for every single family member. All the kids, parents, guardians, whatever that is, there's something meaningful there. And it's nice to have sort of outlined at a high level what every family member's job is for the family. So for every child, maybe starting around 3 years old, you get to decide in your family when the appropriate age is, but they have a job. They don't get paid extra for it. This is your job for the family. And it could start out early as, hey, you brush your teeth and make your bed and put your toys away. But that job will increase as they get older until they launch into adulthood. And the reason we're doing that is basically to get them ready to be a self-reliant adult in a lot of ways. And if everybody can see each other's job for the family and visually, if you could just imagine the family value creation goals in the middle and around it, you've got the parents or guardians, you've got the kids, you can see what everybody's job is. So when you're talking about the goals, it's so cool to say and sort of visually look at it this way, that if everybody does their job, we have a much higher chance of actually achieving our family value creation goals. And I'm seeing this language change the value creation culture. I mean, the overall culture in so many families out there that are applying this. So really helpful. What is everybody's job for the family, and how does it relate to the goals, and how are we cultivating that over time? And with the kids, rather than going to school, let's say K-12 education, for example, in the United States, in the current system, it is something like this: get a good grade, get a diploma, get a degree, get a job. And in that system, all the kids are doing what they think they're supposed to do. When I say all, the vast majority, there are exceptions that are stepping out of that in a good way. but they're doing what they think they're supposed to do. With this framework and looking at it, you realize that, hey, the purpose of an education is to create value in the world. And we want kids to discover their value creation superpowers so they're doing what they were meant to do in the world. And once they get their, their heads and sort of mind intent around that, hey, I'm here to create value, and it could be material. Maybe I want to start a business someday, and I get a job at a fast food restaurant just to learn the ropes and how to earn some money. And then I work my way up. And so once I'm an adult, I'm kind of ready for the world as an adult. So there's so much there around once kids discover their value creation superpowers, it makes education so much more meaningful. They're not, again, doing what they think they're supposed to do. They're doing what they're actually meant to do. And one of the ways I like to look at it is working backwards. So kids at any age could be just getting home from the hospital after being born, 2 years old, 3 years old, 10, 16. It really doesn't matter what the age is. You can start this process at any age and working backwards saying, hey, when our kids launch into adulthood at 18, what are the characteristics, traits, capabilities that we would like them to have? And now let's say, a child is 6 years old, 8 years old. What are the healthy struggles we can intentionally design for them to get them ready to have those traits and capabilities as they launch into adulthood? And when I talk about traits and capabilities, it could be on the trait side, they have a value creation mindset. Their intent is to be self-reliant. They live life with solid integrity going forward. They take personal responsibility. I mean, there's so many things that can go there, and it's up to each family to kind of work through that. And it's important to collaborate with the kids on it. And more so as they get closer to adulthood. And then on the capability side, hey, we wanted to be financially competent. What are the capabilities you want them to have? Being able to think critically, maybe. So there's a lot that goes there. But if you work backwards and then you start intentionally designing very healthy struggles for them to, struggle to get a capability, to build confidence and use that to create value, you have a much higher chance with this holistic value creation model, having kids to a place where they're ready for adulthood. And for me, for example, came from a super low income family. I'm never felt like a victim. Everything's great. Started working really early. By the time I was kicked out of the house at the beginning of my senior year in high school, it was a non-event for me to be able to afford an apartment and finish high school on my own and go on and have an amazing life so far. It's just incredible. So working backwards, really important, and applying this holistic value creation lens, going for it. So what would it feel like if your kids were fully ready, in any family out there, when they launch into adulthood? They're self-reliant, financially competent. They practice virtue, i.e. they're creating real measurable value in the world. They're pushing back on things that take value out of the world. What would that feel like, right? And a lot of kids today really aren't that. Because I think with the best of intentions, as parents, we're taking some parents any and all struggle away from kids, thinking that would be really good, and it's actually harming them when we do that. They're not ready for adulthood going in. So can this be applied to families? 100%. One of the things I've done, because I want to push this out into the world any way that I can, I recently, earlier this year, became interim CEO of a company called Dinner Table. I'm not charging them $1 for what I'm doing. I am helping with and basically writing all of the thought leadership content around applying this to families. And if you're interested, you can go to dinnertable.com. Starting building these communities as of around April 1st this year, like intentionally going out and doing it. Starting from zero, we now are at over 10,000 parents and guardians in this community. And that's incredible what's going on. And my goal is a year from today to be well over 100,000. And then I want to get to millions. So imagine millions of families around the world applying holistic value creation to how they build their legacy and develop their kids. That will move the needle, and it will make for a way better world for me to age out in if we can make that happen.